Hello guys, my name is Dratax from Fogoride.com, and today I'll be showing you a small tutorial about RustBuster's API, and mostly we'll be focusing on the ULinks RPC communication and RustBuster's simple communication, which is TCP. ULinks is UDP. If you don't know the differences, I highly recommend you to look these up. And if you are not experienced with programming, I also recommend you to first take a look at coders.io, for example, or find some sort of website where you could learn programming. But what you have to know is basically we're talking about C#, .NET 3.5. So we're basically limited on that because of Mono and Unity Engine, I think 4.3.3F, which is kind of an old version now. We're talking about a 2014 game, which was developed in that year, I think. It started in 2013 and then it went for a year, maybe a year and a half. So anyway, if you have no experience with the Fogoride API or with RustBuster, there's a small tutorial which has been written or have been written. I think it's been quite a while, in 2015, by Snake. And it kind of tells you what to basically do. If you are experienced with C#, you should not have any problems with this. I think you should be able to understand most of this text over here and the images. Now obviously this is in Microsoft Visual Studio 2013. I'm using JetBrains Rider, which is a new IDE. I've been always sort of JetBrains fan. This has a reason, because I had a nice sort of history with the JetBrains IntelliJ IDE back in 2012 in Minecraft for Java. So anyway, if you are not having Rider, please don't panic. This is just a different IDE. This is my own perspective. You can also download this. This helps you a lot more than most of the IDEs out there, and it is also a better one, I think. So before I head and start doing some bullshit, I'm just gonna call it bullshit. I would like you to take a look at this page that I've quickly written today. It kind of explains most of the things that you should basically know. You can see this image over here. Basically what you have to know is that RustBuster, which is a anti-cheat and sort of a modding platform, is using TCP connections. So that means that it's kind of fast, but it could be more faster if it would have used UDP. Now when it comes to a modding platform or an anti-cheat platform, in my opinion, it is recommended to have reliable connections, which is actually TCP. So in this case, we have reliable and also secure connections using TCP, and we have also UDP connections, which is used by Unity Engine's ULink communication system. According to them, or the explanation is that this sort of ULink API is checking a lot of things, and there are no packet losses and sort of things like that. To be honest, I've had a lot of bad experience with ULink, but let's just not jump into that. The thing you have to know in this case, that if you want fast connections, fast message sending and receiving, you want to use UDP. And if you want to send reliable but a little bit slower message sending, but you want reliable connections that make sure that every single packet is sent without any packet losses, then you want to pick TCP. Now, there's also an additional information that you need to know in this case, which is actually Ulink's UDP connection is kinda compromised. So that means that people have already created programs that is capable to read and decrypt the messages that are being sent from the client to the server and that are being received from the server to the client. So there are people who can basically decrypt those messages. There are these programs out there. These magical people have done that, and basically they know what you're sending. So I highly do not recommend sending sensitive data currently through the UDP connections, which is Ulink RPC. If you want encrypted protocol that is currently secured and it is reliable, you should pick the TCP, which is built into the RustBuster. The only but let's just call it back off or bad thing about RustBuster's TCP is that it's not constant, and it can only be called by the client. So the server is not sending any sort of direct connections back to the client. Did I say that right? I hope I did. So the server is not sending any sort of data back to the client. Only the client is capable to send data to the server, and the server just responds back with a specific message that the client just needs to know. And basically, if you want to send sensitive data, but you don't have any specific sort of vital point where your client must be called from. So what I'm trying to put in here is that you must call or you must send data from the server directly. Then you could also do an RPC call from the server to the client with UDP. And then once the client receives that message, you can also use the RustBuster's TCP client method to send the server a message. But I'm just going to show you, and you'll realize what I'm talking about in a minute. So let's just jump back to my IDE. I've already created the base plugin structure that I'm just going to be using. And basically, I've created a client plugin that is inheriting the usual RustBuster plugin API and the server which is inheriting the Fulgurite module. So what you need to know in this case, that we'll be doing the exact same example that I've just set up here, but with more explanations. So this is all that is written over here is going to be made in a few minutes. It's not hard at all. It's just going to be simply and easy. I'm just going to show you how the communication works in RustBuster or in Rust. In case you didn't know, this is why we have this tutorial at the moment. So basically we have hooked in Fulgurite module, and we also have a client plugin over here. We already know that. So what we need to do is, let's just say we would like to work with the RustBuster login hook, which I think I've forgotten to add. Yes, I did. Oh, this is fucked up. Anyway, it won't take any minute for me to quickly add it from HDT. And we have server, and we also have modules, RustBuster server. There we go. Alright, so now I've referenced the DLL. And let's just go ahead and type hooks on player spawn. There we go. I'm just gonna add these hooks real quick. I'll explain you why in a few minutes. In case you don't know what this is, these are the delegates events that happens at a certain event. In this case, when a player spawns, basically. I'm just going to change this to public. We also have API in RustBuster, and it should be on RustBuster login. Just gonna go ahead and add the same method name over here. Add, remove, and I'm just gonna create the method basically. There we go. Alright. We will be also needing a disconnection, I think. Yeah, let's just do a disconnect method too. One player disconnect. I'll be changing the actual signatures in a minute though, so don't be surprised. Alright, let's remove it at the initialize. I'm gonna change this to public. Alright, so these methods are not going to be here. You'll see why in a minute. We're gonna go ahead and create a new class, which is going to be called what the fuck? Ah, there we go. Alright. So yeah, not what the fuck, but it's going to be called some sort of a behavior class. So let's call it test behavior. Alright, there we go. And this is a behavior class. I just named it like that. We're gonna inherit Unity Engine.mono behavior, and we should be fine now. And I want these methods to be copied inside here. Yes, import the references. Alright. And we're gonna go ahead and type private game object, my game object, and we are also going to type private test behavior, my test behavior. And in this case, you want to go ahead and type at the initialize, at the start of the initialize, you just simply type new game object, and then you go and copy paste your behavior variable, and you do my game object that add component my test behavior. So I'm not gonna explain what this is exactly. What you should do is go on the Unity Engine documentation, and you should read what is mono behavior. But basically it just extends our class so we can work with some extra features. That's all you need to basically know, and nothing else at the moment. And we're going to change this to the test behavior signature, because I've moved the hooks over there. Whoops. This should be... Alright. And just in case, let's destroy the game object too. My game object is not null. Then Unity Engine object destroy my game object. Alright. So this happens at initialization, this happens at deinitialization, and the only reason why I have placed these methods inside the test behavior class is because I want to work with the example that I'm just going to show you right now here, and it's a lot more easier if I do them here. So we have this hook over here, which is called on RustBuster login. So if a connection is made to the server, then we know that this hook is going to run. So somebody's logging into the server, and he's going to spawn in a few, I don't know, seconds. So in this case, this is why I didn't put hooks.onPlayerConnected, because if you think about it logically, the onPlayerConnected can only run if the uLink from the client side is sending a connection to the server, and you don't exactly know if that player is a RustBuster player or just using the original Rust files at the client. So basically, we're making sure that we're only doing this check sort of thing if a RustBuster client is connecting to the server. So we go back to our test behavior. We're going to go ahead and create I'm just going to put it public over here. It actually doesn't matter. We're going to make a dictionary which will contain a ulong variable, which will be the Steam ID, and API RustBuster user API RB connection list new dictionary. And if we have someone who's logging in, we're just going to go ahead and type convert to uint64 user.steamid. So this means that we're converting the string to ulong, but you should know that if you are familiar with C#, and the value will be the RustBuster user API, which is a class. Now, in case the player disconnects, I don't know, times out, for example, or just simply closes his Rust while connecting, let's make sure that we're going to remove him from the memory. We don't want to store him at all. So we just go ahead and remove him. So this is just in case, if so, we keep clearing our dictionary. Now, this is where it gets interesting. If the player is spawning or spawned, we'll check if we did have an RB connection from him. So basically we know that he just logged into the server, and if he did log into the server by using an RB client, then we'll grab his data, which is RB connection list player.uid. Oops. Player.uid. Now we have the data that we have stored in the dictionary, and this is where it gets interesting. So let's say that we have a client plugin that we would like to receive data from the server. Now, the current RustBuster API, which I'm stating again is TCP, is not able to send any sort of data back to the client just directly, because I didn't make it to be possible at the moment. It's not because I'm lazy, it's just secured and faster in that way. I didn't want a constant connection between the client and the server. I just wanted a simple single connection between the client and the server. So this is why you can use ulink's RPC API. This will help you, and I'll show you in a minute how. We'll quickly jump to the test client. This is a simple class. It contains nothing at the moment. But you can create a method like public void. Let's call this method receive hardware ID data. Now, let's just say that I would like to send every RustBuster user the hardware ID of the player which just logged into the server. So basically, I want every client to know the hardware ID of all the players. This is just an example. I just thought that why not? This may be useful for my future plugin, I don't know. But all I know is that I would like to store the hardware ID of every single RustBuster user in every client. So that will consist of a string, which is I don't know, let's just call that hardware ID in shorter way. And notice what I've just done here. I just marked the method to be an RPC method. Now you just can't just call a client method directly from the server, but I'll show you how to call it. This is why we have created this Unity engine.mono behavior, because without this you will not be able to send any sort of requests. And let's just grab string hardware ID data hardware ID. So basically the player which just spawned, we grabbed his hardware ID, and this is going to be a UDP connection. So using Ulink's RPC API. So, and let's just mark this quick from server to client. And I'm also going to type only possible by Ulink's API, because RustBuster doesn't support server to client connections. And now the big magic is you have a variable in this Unity engine mono behavior called network view. You're just gonna grab that, and there's an RPC method inside here. Now it's asking for a string, an RPC mode, and parameters. So what I've declared over here is the received hardware ID data. So the first string is going to be the method's name at the client side in this case. And we have different RPC modes. Now once again, if we jump back here, I have left somewhere over here. Yes, over here I've left a reference to the documentation. But all you need to know in this case is that if we're picking RPC mode all, everything basically including the server and all clients will receive it. If we're stating others, then everyone will receive it, but the sender will not receive the message. So in this case we're sending from the server will not receive the message. And we can also send the RPC to the server, but this is pointless. So we'll just type RPC mode others, and this will call the received hardware ID data at the every client. And we also know that we have to send a hardware ID to the client. So in this case we can just simply type hardware ID. Now you can send as much as you want. You can send any sort of parameters to the client side. You can even send a camera, or you'll have to go back here and type you'll have to go back here and edit the parameter camera. Now this is pointless what I've just done over here, but you can send anything to the client, anything that you wish. It depends on you. This is just beyond your imagination. Now let's just say that I'm sending the hardware ID to the client, which is received. I would like to store it in a list. I have a list string. You know what? Let's make it a dictionary. Let's make it a dictionary again, and let's store ulong and string, and stored player Steam IDs with hardware ID. It's gonna be a long variable name, but who cares? And we're gonna add ulong UID here, and this is all we have to do. Ulong UID equals with the hardware ID. Now we have stored the player's hardware ID at the client side, and we go back here. We also make sure that we send the player's UID in this case. And of course, you want to go ahead and remove the player's data from the temporary list that we have just made at the moment. So we don't need this in an actual cause. You can create another dictionary or another list if you want to store data on the server, but it just depends on your logic, what you want to do. I'm just showing in an example how to communicate. Now, in this case, we have done our example, and we want to let our server know that we have received the hardware ID of the specific client. So basically what you can do is you can use again the Ulinks RPC API, which is really easy and simple. Let's just call that. Let's call this method, I don't know, I have no idea what to call it. I've received the hardware ID, thank you, method. Let's put void over here. Mark it as an RPC method. Yes, I'm going to import it. There we go. And I don't know what to send exactly. I don't know, string. No, let's send an integer back, random number. I don't know. Let's just send a random number back to the server, and basically you can do anything that you want with it. And this is going to be a bit more complicated in this moment, because we also need the client to create a mono behavior class. So let's just call it client behavior C#. This is also going to import Unity Engine mono behavior. There we go. And we go back. We create a game object variable, game object, private client behavior. I hope you're not mad at me because I'm shortening the variable names. We'll create a new game object. We'll add the component client behavior to it. Obviously this will equal with the client behavior. And now we're almost done. Go back to the client behavior, and we're going to type a simple method over here like send yes to the server. You know what, even better, send random number to server. And once again you go ahead and type network view RPC, and the server's method is here. I've received hardware ID, thank you. And with the client behavior we type the server method this time. We have RPC mode server. We don't want to send messages to the client, we just want the server to know that we have received the player's hardware ID. And we'll send a new random number. Now obviously, if you know what I'm doing at the moment, this is bullshit, but I'm just gonna send a random number. And basically this RPC method sends a message to the server in the UDP connection, Ulinks RPC, calling the test server's method. So this is a simple communication between the client and the server using Ulinks RPC API, which can be used by mono behavior. Now, as I've mentioned before, keep in mind that these connections are not so secured. and not as well reliable, but they are pretty fast. So sending some sort of data from the server to the client and back from the client to the server is possible. But if you want to send some sort of sensitive data, let's just say a password from the server to the client, and you want it to be secured, I recommend calling an RPC method from the server back to the client, which I have shown you over here. So you would basically call a client method using the RPC. You can also specify a different player, or a specific player, if you want. So not everyone will receive this call by using a player.network player and player.uid and hardware ID. I think this is correct. No, it's not. Candidates are Unity Engine network player. Oh, that's fucked up. Alright, I think this has to be casted into a Unity Engine network player. I think that's possible. If not, please don't hurt me. I'm not sure. Let's just see it. I cannot cast it. Now this is where it gets different. I'll be looking after this because I've just got myself reminded that it's possible to specify a player, a direct player. I'm gonna look into this after making this video, and I'm just gonna leave it in the description or somewhere where you can find it. But it is possible to send a message or call a client-side method from the server to the client by stating the network player. So in this case we have a foreground player, a specific player that just spawned. You can also send it directly to him. So it is possible. I'm just gonna look into it how, because I'm unsure if how the Unity Engine network player is inherited from the Ulink network player. So I'm just going to take a look at this after that. So back to our example, we are sending a message from the server to the client in the UDP way. So we're sending it in UDP connection from here to back to the client to here. And it is also possible to use RustBuster's TCP connection to send a message to the server. So let's just call public void send RB message. That I have received hardware ID. Let's just call it I've received the hardware ID method, and obviously we'll need an instance over here to call it. So what you gotta do is type RB test server instance. Let's call it instance, and this will equal with this. I'm gonna swap this to internal. And now we can use RB test client. What did I fuck up? This client. Oh, I think I've defined it in the. Oh yeah, I did. Oh yeah, I've defined it in the server. Sorry for that. So this goes at the client, RB test client instance, and this goes from here to here. we define instance equals this. Correct. Alright. We delete this from the server. And we jump back over here. Now we will type RB test client and instance equals. Oh yeah, it has to be static. Sorry, it has to be static. RB test client instance dot send message to server, which would be the correct way. You know what? I'm just gonna delete this. This is actually a useless method. I just wanted to demonstrate the different calling. So you can do send message to the server, and now this is a TCP connection using RustBuster's TCP API from client to the server, and this is UDP connection using ulinks RPC method API from client to the server. And I've already explained what are the differences. So in this case, you don't have to specify anything, you just have to type in a string. Now obviously in this case I'm just going to send a random number again. I'm just going to convert it to a string, and let's put random number and a simple column. You can put semicolon to anything that we would like. The reason why you need an operator, you don't need it sometimes, but sometimes you may need it in case you will be sending arguments or parameters, which I've already demonstrated that you can send as many parameters if you're using the RPC method. You can see it over here that it requires a parameter object arguments. You can send anything with it. It just gets a little harder with RustBuster, but it's not hard at all. You just have to split your own parameters one by one basically. But it's secure and nice, and you can do everything that you would like to do. So you send a random number split with a semicolon or a simple, I don't know what's this sign, I've forgotten, forgot the English word for it. And after that we send a random number. Now we go back to the test server. You're going to type API on use RustBuster user message. Add this over here. Remove it here. Create the method for it. And you have everything that you need to know. You basically receive the user that is sending in a message. So this is all you need to do. You can also type string received message, and we jump back to the server. We check if our message msgc plugin sender equals with RB test client. So we are distinguishing between all the plugins that are communicating with RustBuster. We are just going to work with the RB test client's messages this time, and we go ahead and type string message, or we can type full message msgc message by client, and now we want to split it. Split full message split by this awesome character, And now we check if split 0, which is our first message, as you have seen over here, random number. So we know that our signal message is random number. Then we know that we have received a random number, in this case, which is split 1. And we can also send back a random number by stating msgc return message equals with new random. Oh yeah, I have to distinguish between UT engine and oh damn it, my IDE doesn't like this idea. System.random random equals new random. Really? Okay, finally. Okay, so now we state random.next. I don't know, let's send a random number back between 1000 and 3000, and we convert it back to a string. And we go back to our client, and we can do API dot, oh damn it, RustBuster 2016 API hooks, and there should be a method over here that is able to log our plugin messages, our log data. We have received the server message, or the server's random number, which is received message. And now obviously this is different, your plugin name. Right, this is RB test client. Right, so this will create a log file, and it will log our random number that we have just received back from the server. So basically what I've been just showing to you is that the Ulinks API, which is the RPC, is not requiring any sort of work. You can state as much or as many parameters you would like, and you can state the RPC mode, which is server, others, or all, or you can state a single player to send it directly to. I'm just going to look into that. After the video, I'll link it in the description or whatever, or somewhere. And once again, Ulink's UDP connection is fast, and it is actually, they say that it is checked if every packet is received, but all you have to know, it is fast, but it is compromised. So people may or may not see your messages that you're sending with the RPC. It depends on the person who whether he is an expert in these sort of things or not. But the thing is that the RPC methods are safe to use for the communication, but are not safe to send any sort of vital or sensitive data from the server to the client, or from the client to the server. But using RustBuster's TCP API is secured and safe to use for any sort of stubs. Basically, RB is using TCP connections to send the images to, and it is pretty fast, even though it is TCP connection. But the only downing to the TCP connection in this case, that you can only call it from the client. So you cannot send direct messages from the server to the clients, but you can send direct messages from the client to the server. And as I've mentioned, if you want secure connections or responses from the client, you have to call an RPC method from the server to the client, and the client would just call the send message to the server from the RB API, and everything should be fine as it is. So I hope I helped you guys out with this sort of simple but complicated tutorial. I think I'm just gonna upload the projects over here, and once again I'm gonna look into the specific player or PC mode in a few minutes, and I'm just gonna link it somewhere. So yeah, that's all guys.